It's a Wonderful Life was released in 1946 and stars James Jimmy Stewart and Donna Reed, and this has been talked about ad nauseum. Basically discussed to death all over social media, all over YouTube, so everybody knows at least about this film, even if they've never seen it before. I'm sure everybody has seen clips, so not really going to be discussing a whole lot of plot. I'm just going to be mainly talking about what I like about the film and my own experience with it. I've watched it numerous times, so this is not a first time watch for me. I don't own the 4K, although I will be wanting to purchase it. And it's definitely a yearly watch for me around the holidays. It's just too bad that this one didn't really take off, and like when it came out in 1946. And the stories I heard about this film, having like a $3.18 million budget or something like that, and only making like $3.3 million, which is still something, but this was not close to a Hollywood success that it is today. It's definitely aged well over time like a fine wine, as it deserves. Jimmy Stewart, to be honest, I haven't seen him in like a ton of movies. I know he's in Rear Window, and I know he's in Shop Around the Corner, although I've never seen that film yet. It is definitely on my Christmas list, but It's a Wonderful Life is the first film that I've seen him in, period, and he just blows it out of the park, honestly. The one major thing about this film is just how good Jimmy Stewart is in it, and just this performance alone, you know why the guy went down in history as like a historical figure in Hollywood kind of thing. It's just packed with absolutely wonderful moments, and it does get dark at times. This is, for all intents and purposes, considered a family film, and I still can't disagree that it's a family film. I mean, it's rated G. I would at least give it a PG. But we're dealing with some dark subject matter, especially things that really wouldn't be able to be released today for many reasons, like politically, as well as just dark themes and things that may be a little bit touchy when it comes to younger audiences. But overall, like, it's just a very humane experience. It's a human condition type story, something that just deals with, you know, thoughts and situations and turmoils and things that I would say 99% of adults, man or woman, go through and deal with, kind of thing. I will start off with saying one of the funniest things that I kind of only started to realize this month. There's always something new to discover about this film, and it's not really absolutely soaked in Christmas. More than half of the film realistically has nothing to do with Christmas, and if you cut the Christmas stuff out of it, you still get about an hour of the film, maybe even a little bit more, that is just purely a character drama that could be really set any time of the year. I've always looked at this as a Scrooge story, and although that really does sound like it's you know what kind of story you're getting into, or essentially the key elements that this film is going to deliver, it is just so much more than that, and it's so dense with its themes. I mean, there's just so many moments throughout this film, big and small, that stand out and have always stood out for me. One of my favorites easily is closer to the beginning of the film when Jimmy Stewart goes to that party. I believe it's at a school, or at least a gymnasium of some kind, and this is where he meets Barry for the first time, played by Donna Reed. Not the first time, sorry, but the first time they run into each other since they were kids. And it's just the way her eyes light up when she sees them is just perfect when it comes to acting. But I just love the specific scene in that where the guy who essentially gets jealous of them being together and dancing together and stuff like that, is approached by another guy, and he has the key to the floor of the gymnasium and is able to open it up. And I just love the buildup of that scene and the way it progresses. And when the floor starts to open up and Jimmy Stewart seemingly is still dancing with Mary and doesn't necessarily realize that the floor is opening, and it kind of makes for like a comical sort of screwball, sort of slapstick scene, because he gets closer to the edge of the thing while he's dancing with Mary, and he goes back and forth, and you don't know if he's actually going to fall into the pool until he inevitably does. And when they both fall in, I love how they continue dancing in the pool. It's easily a scene that stands out compared to like in the whole thing. It's one of the most memorable for me. It's just funny because they don't care about what's going on. They don't care that their like suits are completely soaked. They literally are dancing and then fall into the pool and legit continue dancing. It's romantic and it's funny at the same time. I just love that scene. I love the lingo that they would use in the 40s, like Jimmy Stewart with his whole like hot dog every time he like makes a mistake or makes a wish on something. And when he's having a conversation with Mary and he's like, yeah, sure, I'd like her, she's a peach. Timeless lingo that really makes for the experience kind of thing, and really brings you back to that era. When he's walking down the street with Mary, again, another memorable scene when they start singing the song Buffalo Gals, would you come out tonight, would you come out tonight, would you come out tonight, which starts to play off as a theme song to the film as the film goes on, because it plays a few times. But just the whole conversation that he's having with Mary there, and the lasso and the moon. You want the moon? Just give the word. I'll tie a big lasso around it and bring it down for you. I remember seeing that scene in Bruce Almighty when I had no idea what It's a Wonderful Life was. I was a teen when I watched that movie. But when I watched It's a Wonderful Life, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a scene from Bruce Almighty. And how the neighbor is sitting there. This is so reminiscent to how I feel, especially growing up, especially now hitting my 30s, when I see like younger people, especially guys and girls. The neighbor is just looking at them and they're like massively flirting with each other, George and Mary, and the neighbor's just watching them. And then George is like, oh, Mary, am I talking too much? And the neighbor's like, yes, would you just kiss her already? He's like, say what? And the neighbor's like, oh, youth is wasted on the wrong people. I always say youth is wasted on the young because, you know, I'm going to sound like a broken record because I'm sure everybody after a certain age says this, but like if I could go back in time with my mentality today, I would like own the world pretty much. And I know that's literally what everybody says, that it's literally a cop-out at this point. I kind of feel like an old guy just saying it now. Just growing wiser, but still kind of mentally seeing the world in the same kind of lens, in the same kind of view, but getting smarter as the years go by. And pretty much that's how it feels growing up, other than you physically changing, obviously. But that whole like 5-minute segment with the neighbor and with the moon and everything, and when Jimmy is like making more wishes and throwing rocks at the building, it's real. It's really well written too, and phenomenally acted kind of thing. That scene at the beginning of the movie with Mr. Gower, with the whole accidentally putting poison in the pills, holy crap, that is dark. Like, that's what I'm talking about dark scenarios, and the reason being having his son passing away from influenza. Like, that's just got to be a turmoil on his life, and especially like kids dying of sickness and disease back then was a little bit more common just because of less healthcare and different incomes and just the times, really. So losing his son and then like almost accidentally putting rat poison or whatever it was into the pills of in the pharmacy, and then little George Bailey figuring it out and stopping him before he can do it, and just the way like Mr. Gower, sorry, I keep blanking on his name, starts smacking George Bailey around, like this grown adult hitting this little kid. Again, something you're not going to see in movies these days. Also, the currencies. I loved when they would mention just currencies here and there. Like he would talk about, a house for $5,000. A house for $5,000? Man, does everybody wish in 2023 a house costs $5,000. Now, I know inflation, it's very different. $5,000 was actually like hundreds of thousands of dollars back then when you do the whole inflation stuff. But these guys are talking like George Bailey gives back to the people all their loans. They get like what he owes them, and he has like the smallest amount of money left over, and he's like, it's okay, we have $2 left, we're good. And you're like, $2 left, like you could buy a coffee today. Then $2, it's like he had like $5,000 today, or maybe even 10 grand today with $2, depending on how wide inflation was. But you get the picture. They're talking about like minuscule amounts of money that were worth big currency back in 1946, and you're watching as an audience today, you're just like, yeah, totally different times. I really wonder I really wonder what it's like to watch this film if you're under 10 today, and just the massive differences this would be compared to something that would come out in the 2000s kind of thing. Another one of the great scenes. First of all, Mary is a phenomenal wife to George, and it's a crazy shame George doesn't realize it until the movie continues and goes on, and of course leads to the finale third act kind of thing where the angel who's trying to find his wings. I like that theme, how they play with like the angel named Clarence, and every time a bell rings, you know that an angel just got his wings, and Clarence is an angel that's working to get his wings, and him helping George Bailey in order to get his own wings kind of thing. I liked that plot point, and I liked the way the film carried with that plot. But yeah, I lost my train of thought there for a second. Back to his wife. She's so good. I love that scene where she's like roasting chickens in the fireplace, and she calls her husband home, I think, George, and he shows up at home, but the house is like completely run down. It's pouring rain, and there's leaks all over the roof. Like some of the roof is like even collapsing. It's like a crazy destroyed slum of a house in a slum area because of Mr. Potter, Henry Potter, who charges big bucks for like the crappiest houses. But she's cooking him dinner, and she welcomes her husband home and everything, and that scene alone, that like 30 seconds to a minute, just shows how incredibly good this wife is and how much support she's giving George, who unfortunately for the majority of the film takes it completely for granted. But he learns a very good lesson, and I like how the film is written to teach him that lesson. And it does a few things better than the traditional Scrooge story did, especially with showing George what life would be like without him ever being born. Like the whole town they live in wouldn't even be called Bedford Falls, it would be called Pottersville because of Henry Potter basically owning the entire place and giving his own last name to the entire town. And George Bailey is like walking around talking to everybody. Nobody recognizes who he is. It's just a massive change, butterfly effect style, in a world where he was never born. And the funniest thing I've heard people talk about is how quote unquote sexist it is that if he was never born, then his wife Mary would never marry. And everybody's like, that is so sexist. Oh, like, if a woman doesn't marry a man, like she has no life kind of thing, she's just gonna live in rags and be a librarian and be like, live a miserable existence. And people just freak out. I've seen people freak out on YouTube about that specific situation with like shorts and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I don't think that was the point of the movie. I think it was just saying that life is pretty much usually better with a partner, man or woman. Okay, we can all agree on that part, that usually life is better with a mate. Bachelor life is better, or single woman life is better than being with the wrong person, of course, but I will have to say that probably in most circumstances, in most cases, life is better with a partner. And I think that's what they were going for with the whole Mary never married and she ended up a librarian if George was never born and stuff like that. Also, probably she just never found a guy like George, found a love like George. For anybody living in any decade or any era, sometimes love is pretty hard to find. Speaking for the 2020s specifically, it's a challenge to say the least, but like I said, that goes for any era really. Almost knocked over my coffee. But that's one thing that this film does a little bit better than the Christmas Carol Scrooge reveal when Scrooge starts to see how the world would be without him. I like the way they did it in this one better, and I also like George's whole Merry Christmas, like shouting at the skies like Merry Christmas when he comes back to reality and is so thankful to have his wife Mary back and his kids and everybody starts to recognize him again. The way he just shouts for joy, just like Scrooge shouted for joy, but he does it even more fantastically, if fantastically is a word. and I love that part. I really liked George's or Jimmy Stewart, I should say, his charisma when he was like so happy to be back, kind of thing. Also, when he's yelling and coming home and he's shouting for Mary, he's like, Mary! I don't know if I'm the only one, but if you close your eyes and listen to his voice, he sounds like Jim Carrey. He sounds just like Jim Carrey when he's shouting for Mary, his wife, and his kids. Maybe I can't be the only one. Tell me that I'm not the only one hearing Jim Carrey's voice when Jimmy Stewart is shouting for his kids and wife. There's also a scene at the end, and it's like the last 2 minutes of the movie. And I'm probably going to ruin this for a lot of people because, trust me, it was ruined for me too. But Jimmy Stewart's in his house, and this woman that he used to know comes in, and he looks at her, and you can't hear what he's saying, but he like his lips move, and it sounds like he's saying "F me." And I'm looking at it, and I rewinded it again, and I'm like, well, he can't be saying that. It's 1946. They're not going to have that. So I put on the subtitles, and I'm like, I hope there's subtitles where I can see what he actually said. He said Violet Bick. Violet Bick being the name of the woman that just walked in and started speaking. And he's like, but I swear, again, I don't know if I'm the only one. And again, I apologize for anybody who's going to see the scene from now on and see what looks like him saying F me. And I've been trying not to swear in this video. I swear I've had to make a few edits where one slips out and I have to speak again to not say bad words because I want to make this a family review specifically for the film that I'm talking about. I'm sure anybody watching has heard it all anyway, so it's not the biggest deal in the world. I love how they end the film with Hark the Herald Angels Sing. I love that Christmas song. It's a beautiful rendition of it, and it just goes with the joy of the end of the film. And for how dark this film gets, this film also gets very joyous at the end of it, and what it wraps up into. I really liked, it balances it out, because this film is quite darn dark throughout, and then you need that good counterbalance at the end of the film, which it does deliver, and teaches you a lot of lessons. There's so many movies out there that teach good, valuable lessons, but this one just really, hams it in when it comes to the small moments, the small things, the small details in life, which are the most important. I've learned that a long time ago. And for anybody who hasn't, it really, really is the small things. It's, Mary cooking the chickens in the fireplace when the house is in shambles. But you know what? You got a good partner and you got food on the table, and you got love there. What else do you really need when you really think about it? If more people just, took a better look at their surroundings, even if there's a lot of wrong going on, even if it's really bad times or really bad environments, you can find the good if you try. I heard this one guy on YouTube once say, happiness is pretty much a choice, and I've learned that a lot too. It's really a choice to be happy. And then he started going on saying, you don't even have to try that hard to be sad. You don't even have to try that hard to be angry. You can sit there in 10 seconds, 15 seconds, you can do it. But a lot of people don't realize that happiness can be manifested pretty much the same way. And I found that that's one of the biggest lessons in this film. So that's a big interpretation that I took, and there's one for you as a little bit of a Christmas present. You're welcome. I love how he rips it into the teacher who teaches his kids when he's angry. And then the husband comes on the phone and he's like, oh, Mr. Welsh, yeah, I'll tell you what I want to go do to you. I'm going to come over there and bash your head in, kind of thing. And again, we're dealing with a 1940s film, so there's barely any swearing. Well, there's very, very mild language, but the insults that are given are sound harsh, but they don't involve any cursing, which actually just makes it a theme of its own. I love that about old cinema. By the way, that scene when he takes out his frustration on his family and he gets upset, I'm sure a lot of people heard this already, but because he was in the military and he has experienced war, the actual actor Jimmy Stewart, a lot of his acting was actual PTSD and actual moments where he would kind of relive harsh experience that he experienced in the war. Very interesting and very sad to think about that, but you know, it gives a new meaning to method acting when you really think about it. It's kind of crazy. Forgot to mention this quote too in the film. Again, with the whole lasso on the moon scene, he asks Mary how old she is, and she's like 17, or sorry, she's like 18, and he's like, 18? It was just last year you were 17. I love that because it's just so random, and it's just like, yep, that's pretty much how years work. You get 1 year older, you know, every 365 days. If she was 17 last year, she's 18 this year, and it's good for you. If you know what I mean. So good. Such a memorable film, and like I said, I don't really need to talk about the plot because everybody has, you know, I'd just be repeating what 100 other people have said, and what is there to say about this film other than what it means to me. And this film means a lot to me, and it's glorious. I love the cinematography in it, the banters. It's all just great. It's such a good film to be watching Christmas Day or in the month of December a few times. And I always end up watching this film a few times in the month of December. So I'm not going to ramble on too long. Frank Capra's, this is still the only film by Frank Capra that I've seen. I know, shame on me being such a film fan, but yeah, the only Frank Capra film I've ever seen. Not the only Jamie Stewart film that I've ever seen, though. I have seen Rear Window at least, but there's another slew of his films that I need to also get on. But yeah, like I said, great film. I mean, if you haven't checked it out, it's a must for Christmas. Merry Christmas to everybody. A very Merry Christmas, and I hope everybody watching this is enjoying themselves, whether you're watching it later in the year or not. Don't forget to appreciate all the good things that you have around you, because there are always good things around you. Just the fact that you're breathing, if that's all you got right now, it's a good thing. So cherish the holidays. Merry Christmas to everybody. Subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like to listen to my voice, or if you like my film reviews. I'll be back with more, of course. And until the new year, have a good one.